Margaret Hayes, at 67, carried the weight of a lifetime in her bones. A retired nurse from Albuquerque, she'd moved into her daughter Rachel's Santa Fe home after her husband Cliff's death 3 years prior, hoping for the warmth of family. Her days were quiet, filled with the soft ache of her hip and the familiar rhythm of Rachel's adobe-walled house, its terracotta tiles catching the New Mexico sun. But on a crisp morning in Rachel's sunlit kitchen, a single word unraveled everything. No! Margaret sat at the breakfast table, cradling a mug of scalding coffee, its bitter steam curling upward. The wide windows painted golden squares across the floor, and for a moment she felt a flicker of peace. Rachel, 42, poured herself a cup, her eyes fixed on her phone, her face taut with distraction. Across the table, 17-year-old Ethan, Margaret's grandson, scrolled on his gaming device, headphones loose around his neck. Without looking up, he said, "Grandma, can I borrow your credit card again? It's only $5,000 for my setup." Her fingers tightened around the mug, the heat biting her palms. "No, Ethan," she said softly, her voice steady but firm. He blinked, shrugged, and returned to his screen, unbothered. But Rachel's head lifted, her eyes narrowing to slits. The silence that followed wasn't ordinary. It was heavy, venomous, a warning Margaret felt in her spine. Then, with chilling precision, Rachel reached across and tipped Margaret's mug into her lap. Scalding coffee soaked her thin pajama pants, searing her thighs. Margaret gasped, lurching back, the mug shattering on the tile with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. Pain shot through her, but Rachel didn't flinch. She crossed her arms, her expression cold as desert stone. "If you're going to be selfish, leave. We're not running a charity, Mom." Charity. The word cut deeper than the burns reddening Margaret's skin. She stood, trembling, coffee dripping to the floor. Her eyes locked on Rachel's, searching for the daughter she'd raised, through scraped knees, late-night study sessions, a painful divorce. But Rachel's gaze was calculating, measuring Margaret's worth. Ethan didn't look up, his fingers still tapping his screen, waiting for her to cave. $5,000, Margaret whispered, her voice shaking but controlled. "For a child's toys?" Rachel's lips curled. "It's not a big deal. You've got money from Dad's estate. Why are you being so difficult?" Margaret's hands shook as she grabbed a paper towel, dabbing uselessly at her lap. No one moved to help. The truth settled like ash. Rachel didn't see her as a mother, but as a resource to be drained. Without a word, she closed the kitchen door behind her, the sting of coffee and betrayal burning in tandem. In the guest room, the air felt colder, the curtains heavy. Margaret sat on the bed, her hip protesting, and pulled her suitcase from the closet's top shelf. Dust rose from its leather, carrying the faint scent of cedar, a reminder of trips with Cliff long ago. She folded her clothes with deliberate care, each movement a reclaiming of herself. Opening her purse for her wallet and medication, she froze. The wallet was gone. She dumped the bag, tissues, mints, a lipstick, but no ID, no cards. Her heart raced. She'd had it yesterday at the pharmacy, where Rachel had insisted on carrying her bag, citing Margaret's limp. What she'd mistaken for kindness was theft. Grief clawed at her, but beneath it, something sharper stirred, resolve. She opened the dresser's bottom drawer, where an envelope lay hidden under linens, copies of her birth certificate, banknotes, scribbled records of odd charges. Months ago, some instinct had urged her to save them. Now, they were her lifeline. Rachel hadn't just asked for money. She'd been stealing it, step by step, eroding Margaret's independence. Margaret scrolled her phone, fingers trembling, until she found David Mercer's number. A retired attorney and former neighbor, he'd once said, "Call me any time." His voice answered warmly. "Ruth?" "No," Margaret said, steadier than she felt. "But it will be." Within an hour, David's car crunched into the driveway. His eyes caught the red burns on her pajamas but asked no questions. He took her suitcase and said, Let's go. As they passed the living room, Rachel lounged on the couch, a home renovation show droning. Ethan slouched, headphones on, gaming. Neither looked up. The front door clicked shut behind Margaret, not slammed, but final. David drove through Santa Fe's adobe-lined streets, the soft reds and oranges glowing under the midday sun. Margaret's mind flickered to walks with Cliff, when the city felt like possibility. Now, each block severed her from Rachel's grip. David broke the silence. "You're safe now. We'll sort this out." Her throat tightened, not with tears but relief. He took her to Silver Oaks, a discreet assisted living community in the foothills. Its weathered sign promised dignity, not pity. The lobby smelled of lemon balm and fresh bread, not antiseptic. Through wide windows, a garden courtyard shimmered, koi gliding in a pond, two women laughing as they rolled up yoga mats. A staff member showed Margaret to a temporary suite, her pace unhurried. For the first time in months, no one sighed at her slowness. Standing by the courtyard, Margaret whispered, "This smells like living." David's hand rested on her shoulder. "You're not weak, Margaret. You're free." That evening, in David's adobe home, they spread her papers across his oak desk. Old bank statements, utility bills, her notebook of suspicious charges, $200 at an electronics store, $300 withdrawn at 3 a.m., PayPal transfers to Ethan Plays. David's lawyer mind cut through the mess. This is financial abuse, hidden under family trust. Margaret's notebook, dates, amounts, Rachel's helpful moments, became a timeline of betrayal. The next morning, they met Clara, a financial protection officer, at the courthouse annex. Her calm efficiency reminded Margaret of her nursing days. Handing over her notebook, Margaret explained the stolen wallet, the forged transactions. Clara studied the pages. "You've kept better records than most." She asked about Margaret's home, still in her name despite Rachel's attempts to control it. "You have leverage," Clara said. By noon, Margaret signed papers for the Margaret Hayes Irrevocable Trust, shielding her house from Rachel's reach. A realtor, Camille, evaluated the property that afternoon. Rachel called, furious, "A stranger's in my house with a camera. What's this about?" Margaret's voice was calm. "Reclaiming what's mine. You've been squatting in my home, using my money. That ends now." Rachel hissed, "You're cruel." Margaret replied, "You only miss me because I said no." She hung up, the silence louder than Rachel's rage. Days later, Rachel stormed Silver Oaks, Ethan trailing in his hoodie. Through tinted glass, Margaret watched from the sunroom, sipping tea with Marjorie, a resident. Rachel paced the lobby, gesturing wildly, shouting. Staff barred her, Doris the security head standing firm. Ethan muttered, shoulders sagging. Margaret stayed seated, her heart steady. "Let her see me calm," she told Marjorie. Rachel's eyes met hers through the glass, mouthing Mom. Margaret didn't move. She'd already said goodbye. An envelope arrived, a forged $3,500 check from Margaret's account, tucked in a letter of crocodile tears and pleas for car loan money. Margaret shredded it and sent the evidence to Clara. Investigators launched a probe into Rachel and Ethan for fraud and elder abuse. The truth was climbing out, unassailable. In Silver Oaks garden, under Cliff's worn quilt, Margaret sat by the koi pond. David joined her, bringing desert wildflowers. "You ended the cycle," he said. Her journal lay open, a new entry in steady handwriting. "Family without care isn't family. Dignity must be defended. Chosen silence is strength." Rachel raged elsewhere, but her storm couldn't touch Margaret. Marjorie brought chamomile tea, her grin warm. "You needed this." Margaret smiled, truly smiled. The garden lights flickered on, the pond mirroring twilight. She'd lost a daughter but found herself. "I'm home," she whispered, the quilt warm, the koi gliding. David squeezed her hand. That's everything. The desert air carried her old life away, and Margaret Hayes, at last, was free.